Let's begin our introduction to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. Today we are going to introduce Chapter 1, but before we do, let's do a quick review. Our novel, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, is the first in a series of 7 books entitled The Chronicles of Narnia. Those 7 books are The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, The Silver Chair, The Horse and His Boy, The Magician's Nephew, and The Last Battle. All of these were written in the 1950s. C.S. Lewis began writing the first book, however, in 1939, and there were a couple of major life events which influenced it. First, as a child, his Irish nurse had told him many tales of ancient myths, and you will see that immediately come out about halfway through the first chapter. During World War II, there were 4 children who stayed at him at his country house and stirred his imagination. That will immediately be played out as well as the book introduces itself on the first page. In 1948, he resumed writing the novel and he finally finished it in 1949. This novel was written for his goddaughter, and her name was Lucy Barfield. You will see that Lucy is the main character in the novel, and Lucy was the daughter of his good friend Owen Barfield. We learned a new literary term yesterday. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is a form of literature known as allegory. An allegory is a story that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, and it is typically a moral or political meaning. So you can also say that an allegory shares a hidden theme. We've learned many times over that theme is the main social issue in a story. In an allegory, the characters and places symbolize moral concepts such as right and wrong or good and evil, and you will see that very strongly played out in this book. I received some great feedback from several of you yesterday with examples of allegory, and those are posted on our website. But let's watch this video and learn a little bit more about allegory.
If you're drowning in a sea of symbols, you're probably wishing for a life preserver. I'll throw you one next. It's the definition of allegory. In almost every book you read for English, you'll probably come across at least one symbol. But when everything stands for something else, you don't just have an author who's obsessed with symbols, you have an allegory. Now, I'm not big on scholarly stuff, but here's a tidbit that's actually pretty awesome. Allegory comes from the Greek word allegoria, which means speaking otherwise. Translation. An allegory is all about double meaning. You've got what's going on the surface of the story, and then you have a political or social message that all the elements of the story are working together to convey. There's no telltale sign for an allegory, but often allegories have fantastical elements, and context helps too. If you know the author had a thing for criticizing the government, you might have an allegory on your hands. Still confused? Lord of the Flies, Gulliver's Travels, and The Wizard of Oz are all allegories. Check one out to experience allegory firsthand, or click on this video again for a repeat tutorial.
As the novel opens, you will read that 4 children come to stay in a large country home to escape the air raids in London. The homeowner that you will see described is modeled after C.S. Lewis himself. The 4 children are modeled after 4 real-life children who truly did stay in his home for a while. The names of those 4 children have been changed in the book, but the primary character is given the name Lucy, and she is named after his goddaughter, Lucy. So what are these air raids that are taking place, which have caused the children to come out into the country? Let me give you a little context. Remember, we learned that context is background information that helps us better understand the text. World War II took place from 1939 through 1935, and it took place because after the government of Germany was taken over by the Nazi Party, they made it their goal to conquer as much of the world as possible. World War II began on September 1st, 1939, when the German nation invaded Poland, and then 2 days later, Britain and France declared war on Germany, and Britain, as we know, was the home of C.S. Lewis. There was, of course, retaliation from the Germans, and on September 7th, 1940, the Germans began bombing London, England, in an effort to demoralize the British people. Demoralize means to weaken them and make them surrender. Incidentally, it did not work. This went on for about 6 months, and it was known as the Blitz. During this time, though, about 32,000 people were killed. About 87,000 more were seriously injured, and about 2 million homes were destroyed. That's about 60% of the homes in London at that time. So as the book opens, this is why the 4 children have left London and come to stay in the country. They have been sent there probably by their parents in an effort to protect them from the bombing. And that's also why you'll see that they are so excited to be there as the story opens. So let's watch a video that will give you a little better perspective on the Blitz and the damage that it did.
Taking advantage of low cloud, German fighter bombers skimmed over rooftops, bombing and machine gunning houses and streets in the London area. An audacious daylight raid, during which civilian homes and families fell victim to the attack. German pilots who have always fought shy of our balloon barrage took liberties with the gas bags and, from all accounts, escaped the lethal dangers of this part of our defense. The personal effects of once happy homes mixed in ruin with the heaps of rubble. Tragedy came to many that day. Rescue and demolition parties were called once more to their tasks. The most shocking disaster of this raid befell a council school, sliced in half by a bomb. The tragic death roll of little children and teachers mounted daily. About 50 perished and as many were injured. Families spent days and nights waiting for news of the fate of their little ones. American soldiers looked upon this latest sample of Nazi warfare. The sight of this tragedy is imprinted on their minds. Men don't forget such things. While this dreadful outrage on a school weighs heavily on our hearts, let us in London not forget that there are other towns in our land which have envied us a long need they almost daily experience. How our latest model Spitfires and new Typhoons shot down 14 of those Huns made wonderful reading. During a visit to a fighter command station, one of the pilots recounted his part in their destruction.
I dived down, shot the one on the left in C, turned to attack the next one and got a few strikes. And then I looked behind me.
That one didn't go in, that second one of yours.
No, I only damaged it.
The people of those raided London suburbs would like to thank these men and their comrades.
Before we begin reading, it is also important to learn a few vocabulary words for 2 reasons. 1, some of these are terms you may not have encountered before. 2, some of these are British terms, and we simply don't talk like that in West Tennessee. So the first one is air raids. An air raid is simply an attack by aircraft, especially on a non-military target. You will read about them spotting a blue bottle in the house. A blue bottle is a type of flying insect with a blue body. Inquisitive simply means eager for knowledge or curious, and I want each of you to be inquisitive. A looking glass is simply a mirror. The easy way to remember that is just to think that a looking glass is a glass which is used to look at yourself. Mothballs are small balls that contain chemicals to keep moths away from clothing and storage, usually in closets, and they feel similar to styrofoam. A muffler, in this case, is not a part of a car. It is a scarf worn around the neck to keep the person warm. Parcel is another word for a package. We see that some here in the United States. We have United Parcel Service, which delivers packages, and you know them as UPS. In literary terms, queer means strange or unusual. He heard a queer sound coming out of the closet. I know that in our society, other definitions have been added, but literarily speaking, queer means strange or unusual. A row is a disturbance or a quarrel. This is one of the most important words you need to know for this novel. A wardrobe in America is often thought of as what you're wearing, but in this case, a wardrobe is a piece of furniture. It's basically a closet that stands on four legs sometimes and can be moved around. So it's a large cabinet-like piece of furniture which serves as a closet for storing clothing. So when you read that Lucy climbed up into the wardrobe, she climbed up into this closet-like piece of furniture. You will hear one of the children say that they have a wireless, and that is definitely not related to internet. Internet had not even been dreamed of at that point. He is referring to a radio that does not have batteries or cords. It was probably powered by batteries, and so it was wireless, as to speak in their day. You will read where one of the children says, "We have fallen on our feet." That simply means we have been sent to a good place. An easy way to remember that is that when you fall, you want to land on your feet. And so that's a good place to land, is on your feet. And they have landed in a good place at this home. You will read where one child tells another to come off it. That simply means, hey, stop acting that way. One of the children will say 10 to 1. That's sort of a gambling reference. It means if there were, say, 11 chances for this to happen, then 10 of those times it would happen this way, and only one time would it happen the other way. So in other words, it just means it's very likely that this is going to happen. So scholars, I believe we are thoroughly prepared to start reading. Tonight's assignment is to read chapter 1, and it is only 4 pages long. So feel free to read further, but at least read chapter 1 because we will pick up discussing it tomorrow. Tonight's challenge question is, at the end of chapter 1, what would you do if you were Lucy? So you have to read chapter 1 to understand the question. Answer that in 1 to 2 complete and proper sentences. Remember everything we covered about complete sentences and proper sentences, and email your answer to gekelley@jmcs.org, and we will put it on the shout out wall tomorrow. Scholars, I've enjoyed it. I love you, and I'm very proud of you. Have a great day.